There is a moment when everything changes for the empath. A moment when they suddenly see clearly what they have been blind to for years. The manipulation they called love. The exploitation they called friendship. The emotional labor they called connection. And in that moment of waking up, something shifts that they do not expect. The people around them turn against them. Not slowly. Not subtly. But immediately and viciously. The same people who claim to love them become their harshest critics. The same people who depended on them become their loudest accusers. The same people who benefited from their endless giving suddenly have nothing but complaints about who they are becoming. You have felt this. Maybe you are feeling it right now. The confusion of waking up to your own exploitation only to be treated like you are the problem. The shock of setting your first real boundary only to be called selfish by people who have been taking from you for years. The bewilderment of choosing yourself for once and being accused of abandoning everyone. You thought people would celebrate your awakening. That they would be happy you finally saw the truth. That they would support your growth and cheer for your transformation. But instead, they are attacking you for it. And you cannot understand why. Carl Jung understood why. And the reason is darker than you want to believe. People turn against empaths once they wake up because the sleeping empath was serving a function. A crucial function. A function that made everyone else's life easier while making the empath's life impossible. And the moment the empath wakes up and stops performing that function, everyone who benefited from it panics. Because they know what your awakening means. It means the free emotional labor is over. The endless availability is done. The one-sided relationships are ending. The person who absorbed all the chaos while asking for nothing in return is gone. And they are furious about it. You spent years being what everyone needed you to be. The listener who never needed to be heard. The giver who never asked to receive. The understander who never needed to be understood. The forgiver who never required an apology. The supporter who never needed support. This version of you was convenient. Easy. Safe. People could take from you without guilt because you never made them feel guilty for taking. They could use your empathy without reciprocating because you never demanded reciprocity. They could treat you as less than because you accepted less than without complaint. Your sleeping state allowed them to avoid accountability. To bypass growth. To remain exactly as they were while you bent yourself into shapes that accommodated their dysfunction. But then you woke up. And everything they built on your unconsciousness collapsed. Jung taught that people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own shadow. The people in your life have been using you to avoid their shadow. Using your empathy to avoid developing their own. Using your emotional availability to avoid their emotional immaturity. Using your tolerance to avoid consequences. Using your forgiveness to avoid change. You were the buffer between them and their own growth. And your awakening removed that buffer. This is why they turn against you. Not because you have done something wrong, but because you have stopped allowing them to avoid doing the work they should have been doing all along. When you set a boundary, you force them to respect something they never had to respect before. When you say no, you require them to hear a word they were never told in relation to you. When you stop absorbing their emotions, you make them responsible for regulating themselves. When you stop making excuses for their behavior, you make them face what their behavior actually is. Your awakening is their mirror. And they hate what they see in it. You remember the exact moment the attack started. Maybe it was the first time you said no without apologizing. Maybe it was when you stopped responding to their crisis texts immediately. Maybe it was when you called out behavior you used to ignore. Maybe it was when you chose your own peace over their comfort. Whatever the moment was, their response was immediate. Accusations that you had changed. That you were not yourself. That you had become selfish, cold, distant, unrecognizable. They framed your awakening as your deterioration. Your growth as your failure. Your self-protection as your cruelty. And if you were not awake enough yet, you believed them. You wondered if they were right. If you had become a bad person. If your boundaries made you selfish. If protecting yourself made you cruel. If choosing yourself made you wrong. But Jung would tell you that their accusations are projections. They are accusing you of the very things they have been doing to you all along. They call you selfish for having needs because they have been selfish in ignoring those needs. They call you cold for having boundaries because they have been cold to your pain. They call you distant for protecting yourself because they have been distant from any real connection with you. Every accusation is a confession. And your awakening forced those confessions out of them. The people who turn against you are revealing something they kept hidden while you were asleep. That they never valued you. They valued what you provided. That they never loved you. They loved how you made them feel. That they never saw you as a person. They saw you as a function. A role. A service. And now that you have stopped performing that service, they have no use for you. So they attack. They gaslight. They recruit others to their narrative. They tell everyone who will listen that you are the problem. That you have hurt them. That you are not who you used to be. And they are right about one thing. You are not who you used to be. You are awake now. And the sleeping version of you is never coming back. Jung believed that the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. You are accepting yourself now. The real you. The one with needs and boundaries and limits. The one who will not tolerate being treated as less than. The one who requires reciprocity in relationships. The one who walks away from people who cannot meet them with genuine care. This acceptance terrifies the people who benefited from your self-rejection. Because as long as you rejected your own needs, they never had to meet them. As long as you denied your own worth, they never had to acknowledge it. As long as you stayed unconscious, they never had to become conscious. Your awakening demands consciousness from everyone around you. And most people would rather attack you than become conscious. You thought waking up would set you free. And it does. But freedom comes with a price. The price is that you lose people. Not real people. Not people who actually loved you. But people who were using you. People who needed you to stay asleep so they could continue taking without giving. These people turn against you not because you have wronged them, but because you have stopped allowing them to wrong you. And to someone who has been taking advantage of you for years, your refusal to be taken advantage of anymore feels like an attack. It is not an attack. It is self-defense. But they cannot see the difference. Because seeing the difference would require them to acknowledge that they were the ones attacking you all along. And Jung understood that most people will never make that acknowledgement. They would rather destroy you than face themselves. This is the dark reality of waking up as an empath. The people you thought would support you become your opposition. The relationships you thought were solid crumble the moment you stop holding them together alone. The love you thought was mutual reveals itself as transactional. And you are left standing in the rubble of everything you thought was real, wondering how you got here. You got here by waking up. And waking up always costs you the people who needed you to stay asleep. The attacks intensify as you continue to wake up. Because each new layer of consciousness you reach threatens another aspect of how they have been using you. Each boundary you set eliminates another way they could access you. Each truth you speak disrupts another comfortable lie they were living. And they respond to each awakening with increasing hostility. Because they are not just losing access to you. They are being forced to see themselves clearly. And Carl Jung understood that people fear their own reflection more than anything else in the world. Your awakening holds up a mirror to everyone who took advantage of your sleep. And what they see in that mirror is unbearable. They see that they have been selfish while calling you selfless. They see that they have been taking while giving nothing. They see that they built entire relationships on your willingness to accept less than you deserved. And instead of using that reflection for growth, they try to shatter the mirror. They turn against you with a ferocity that seems disproportionate to what you have done. Because in their minds, what you have done is unforgivable. You stop letting them use you. And to someone who has been using you, that feels like betrayal. Jung taught that what we cannot accept in ourselves, we project onto others. The people turning against you cannot accept that they have been exploiters. So they project that onto you. They accuse you of using them. Of abandoning them. Of never really caring about them. Of being the selfish one all along. Every accusation is a reversal. They take what they have done to you and claim you are doing it to them. And if you are not fully awake yet, if you still have remnants of the old programming, you might believe them. You might wonder if they are right. If you are being unfair. If you are overreacting. If your boundaries are actually selfishness. But here is what your awakening has revealed. The same people calling you selfish for having boundaries never called themselves selfish for violating those boundaries repeatedly. The same people saying you abandoned them never acknowledged how they abandoned you emotionally for years. The same people claiming you do not care never cared enough to ask how you were doing. They are not describing you. They are describing themselves. And they are furious that you finally see it. The people who turn against you most viciously are often the ones who took the most. The friend who only called during her crises. The family member who made you responsible for his emotions. The partner who required you to manage his life while he ignored yours. The coworker who drained you daily without ever offering support in return. These people do not turn against you because you wronged them. They turn against you because you stopped allowing them to wrong you. And that distinction is everything. Jung believed that growth requires the death of old patterns. Your awakening is killing patterns that entire relationships were built on. Patterns where you gave and they took. Where you adjusted and they remained rigid. Where you carried emotional weight and they added to it. Where you made space for them and they took up all the space. When you wake up, you stop participating in these patterns. And the relationships built entirely on those patterns cannot survive your non-participation. They collapse. Not because you destroyed them, but because they were never real. They were elaborate illusions maintained by your unconsciousness. Your awakening reveals what was always true, that these were not mutual relationships. They were extraction operations. And the people running those operations turn against you the moment you stop allowing the extraction. This is why their attacks feel so personal, so vicious, so disproportionate. Because you are not just setting boundaries. You are exposing the truth of what these relationships always were. And they will do anything to avoid that truth becoming public knowledge. They will tell everyone you have changed. They will recruit others to their narrative. They will create stories about what you did to them. They will paint themselves as victims of your awakening. They will gather support from people who do not know the full story. They will turn mutual friends against you. They will do whatever it takes to maintain the illusion that they were the ones being mistreated. Jung called this the collective shadow. The group's shared unwillingness to face uncomfortable truths. The people who turn against you often recruit others who have been using you in similar ways. Because those people sense that if your awakening is validated, their access to you is threatened too. So they all band together. United not by love for each other but by their shared interest in keeping you unconscious. In convincing you that your boundaries are wrong. That your awakening is a mental breakdown. That the real you is the sleeping version who tolerated everything they did. But you are awake now. And you can see through this. You can recognize it for what it is. Not a genuine reflection of your character. But a desperate attempt to manipulate you back into unconsciousness. Back into the role you played. Back into the version of yourself that made their lives easier while making yours unbearable. And you are not going back. Not because you are being stubborn. But because you cannot. Because once you see clearly, you cannot unsee. Once you understand the pattern, you cannot pretend it does not exist. Once you recognize how you were used, you cannot voluntarily submit to that use again. Jung taught that consciousness is irreversible. The bell cannot be unrung. The knowledge cannot be unknown. The awakening cannot be undone. You are permanently changed. And the people who needed you unchanged are permanently out of alignment with who you have become. This is why they turn against you so completely. Because they sense that you are gone. That the person they could manipulate is dead. That no amount of guilt or anger or accusations will bring that person back. And rather than accepting this and doing their own growth, they attack. They punish. They try to destroy what they can no longer control. But their attacks do not land the way they used to. Because you are not the person you were. The guilt they try to manufacture does not take root. The shame they try to impose slides off. The fear they try to activate no longer controls you. You have awakened to their tactics. And tactics only work on people who are unconscious of them. You can see them trying to push your old buttons. The ones that used to work perfectly. The guilt button that made you responsible for their emotions. The fear button that made you avoid conflict at any cost. The obligation button that made you stay in situations that hurt you. The empathy button that made you absorb their pain without boundaries. They are pushing all the buttons. But the buttons are disconnected now. Your awakening rewired you. And what used to control you no longer has any power. This powerlessness enrages them. Because they are confronting their own impotence. Their inability to make you go back to sleep. Their failure to manipulate you back into the role you played. Their loss of the one person who made their dysfunction manageable. And they blame you for their rage. They say you made them this way. That you changed and forced them to respond. That your awakening is what created the conflict. As if you were supposed to stay unconscious forever to keep them comfortable. Jung understood that people who refuse to grow will always blame the people who do grow. Because growth confronts them with their stagnation. Your evolution highlights their refusal to evolve. Your consciousness exposes their determination to remain unconscious. And they cannot forgive you for it. But their forgiveness was never necessary. Their approval was never required. Their understanding was never the goal. Because your awakening was not about them. It was about you. About reclaiming yourself. About refusing to be used anymore. About choosing consciousness over comfort. And if that choice costs you relationships, those relationships were costing you yourself. If that choice makes people turn against you, those people were already against you. They just hid it better while you were serving their needs. The people who turn against you when you wake up are revealing what was always true. That they never valued you as a person. Only as a function. That they never loved you for who you were. Only for what you provided. That they never wanted you to grow. Only to remain small enough to fit in the box they built for you. Your awakening broke that box. And they are mourning the box, not you. They are angry about losing their access, not losing your presence. They are attacking you for refusing to stay in a role that was destroying you. Let them attack. Let them turn. Let them show you who they always were beneath the performance of care. Because Jung was right. People show you their truth when you stop accommodating their lies. And your awakening stopped accommodating every lie that was told about who you were supposed to be. You are awake now. And awake people do not dim their light because sleeping people find it too bright. You are not going back to unconsciousness to make unconscious people comfortable. You are not sacrificing your clarity to maintain their delusions. The people who turn against you are the cost of freedom. And freedom is worth every person who only wanted you in chains. You are awake. Stay awake. Even when they attack. Especially when they attack. Because their attacks are proof that your awakening is real. That you have become someone who cannot be used anymore. That you have transformed into someone who chooses themselves. And that is the one thing they can never forgive.